Hello and welcome to the F1 Rolling Start podcast. I am James and this is...
Hey, I'm Ben.
And we did not mean to intentionally match today, but
No.
Heritage Racing, you're welcome for the free advertisement.
Also, Cafecito, the
And
best
this
coffee shop in Yuma, Arizona.
random Malibu hat that I got down in the greatest city in the world.
And
Malibu.
Estrella.
Well, these are purposeful. So we got the Estrellas because it was just the Spanish Grand Prix, and it's Carlos Sainz. He's sponsored by them, so we thought that would be a, smart thing to do. Yeah, you're welcome.
He didn't win or anything.
Get these at the local Vons in Highland Park.
Absolutely, they're fantastic.
Anyway, we're super excited to talk through the last two races, Canada and Spain.
Yeah, and look ahead to Austria, Red Bull Ring.
Yep, and Silverstone.
We're
in the midst of a triple header at the moment.
There's so much happening. Also, can I just say, summer nights in California.
Summer nights in California. That's why we're outside.
That's why we're outside.
That's the only reason we're outside.
Little lights. It just feels
the lights,
like a new day.
A nice cold, crisp beer.
You can't beat it.
Your friend.
You can't beat it.
Chit-chatting about Formula One. It's going to be an absolutely amazing show today. But before we get into it, we have to stop and ask you to go ahead and like and subscribe on whatever platform you're on. So if you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to us, go ahead and give us a like. Shoot us a message on Instagram. Follow us on YouTube. We would love to get to know you.
Should I say at this point that I have no social media whatsoever?
Yes.
And I personally
would like
know.
to get you know you.
He would.
I
don't
like
know.
to get to know you. And I'll tell Ben about you. And
Yeah.
it will be absolutely lovely.
I'm worthless when it comes to social
also,
media.
shout out to one of our listeners, BG. He's also in our fantasy league, which you can also join as well. You can see that in the show notes. He got us these racing heritage t-shirts.
Yeah.
I have the Honey Badger. You have Alonso.
I've got Alonso. You're doing quite well in our fantasy.
I have this last, I got to be honest.
Did you win?
No. I'm in third place or second. I can't remember.
Okay,
I think I'm in third place.
I think I'm like dead last almost.
Yeah. You kind of have to go in every week. And it's something that you're kind of neglecting to do.
I am absolutely just like, I just give up. People, here's the problem with fantasy. I've done the fantasy thing before. I've done the March Madness. My friends are always like, let's do it. There's money involved. I just...
Whoa, we didn't put any money on this?
No, not with this. My friends in the past have always said, there's money. Let's
Right.
And I just can't... it's too much to stay up with and every week go in there. Yeah. And this is my...
And needless to say that, we would love for you as followers to join us in fantasy.
If you're into it. We love for them to use social media. I don't have to use social media. You can play fantasy and beat me. I'm an easy person to beat.
Yeah, because you don't play. You're just in there. I forced you to go in there. Anyway, you can join us, follow us, engage with us. We'd love to chat with you. It would be absolutely awesome.
Always.
But let's jump into the last few races. We have had a turn in the season. It is officially a fight for the championship.
You know, this was something that some of the folks over at Sky Sports were talking about, listening to their pod, and one of them was mentioning, it's a dangerous thing to kind of give up on F1. And at the beginning of the season, a lot of folks were just giving up on it. There was kind of this felt frustration by folks inside the sport and by fans that can we get over Max winning everything? Right. Can we get over the predetermined results every single week?
The prescribed outcome.
We were, at the beginning of the season, we were over it.
We were scratching our heads going, do we just need to put the podcast on hold? Like, how are we going to make
until
Max
this
win
becomes
over and
competitive
over
again?
Yeah.
And
we were watching Crofty make the most of a battle for P11 and 12. Like, it's
like, I don't care about kick that much.
No, you're not, and you don't even see the front runner on the screen because he's half a minute ahead of everybody.
So that was the beginning of the season. We are now about halfway-ish through. Well, a little over a third of the way through. And we're not at that point anymore.
Yeah. No.
It's Red Bull. It's McLaren. It's Ferrari. It's Mercedes. Question mark, Mercedes,
Correction.
if they're actually for real. But you legitimately have 8 drivers that could potentially put it on pole. You've got multiple drivers that have already won or that could win It is not predetermined that Red Bull and Max are going to take every single weekend. They're still heavy favorites, and Max will probably still win drivers, but Red Bull is not guaranteed to win the constructors.
No.
And it's arguably can be said that Red Bull at this point might not even have the fastest car. McLaren
At least
is
not
fighting for that.
I think you can confidently say Red Bull doesn't have the fastest car at all tracks.
No, of course.
It was absolutely apparent that at the Spanish Grand Prix that Lando Norris's car was faster than the Red Bull.
Yeah.
Now, was it, prolifically faster? Absolutely not. But
No.
it was faster.
It was faster.
The way that you see Max getting out of the car now versus the way that he sauntered out of the car for the most
like he just got off of a beach
exactly.
after like taking a nap for 2
after
hours.
doing endurance races the night of, like it's not happening anymore. He is working for it.
Yes.
But we have cars in the mix. There's been a couple surprises. Okay, so let's start with the Spanish Grand Prix.
Yeah,
Max wins it.
He does.
Lando chokes.
Should he have won it?
No, Lando choked at the beginning. We're looking at a Lando Norris that's no longer the scrappy guy that's taking a car that's definitely slower than the rest and wringing the neck out of it. Yeah. We're looking at even playing field Lando Norris, and it's new territory for him.
Well, new territory. This was his second pole.
Correct.
It's only a second pole. It's this guy hasn't had that much practice starting a Grand Prix on pole.
Exactly.
Second time. So
yeah. And he was so focused on Max that
he didn't see George.
No. And had he had just kept the racing line, it would have been harder for George to just whip around the outside like a slingshot. The speed at which
he was like behind Max, got some toe, dipped behind Lando, and then just was off.
Boom. Yeah. He got toe from Max, toe from Lando, and then boom, gone.
Yeah.
But the problem is that the Mercedes is not the fastest car on the track.
No, they're
and
not.
So Max caught up to him, and because of that, Lando's race was ruined. Yeah. He couldn't, unless there was a safety car or a miracle of some kind, it wasn't going to happen again for Lando. And I think that he said that in the post briefing. He was like, "Look, I botched the beginning."
Yeah, no, he did. He was very honest about that. Lando, like George, like Chuck, they're very hard on themselves.
Yeah.
And you don't hear them blaming their team,
which I like,
which is great. They take responsibility for their actions or for what they feel as their mistakes. And so, Crofty was even mentioning at some point where he was like, listen, Lando got stuck behind George for 4 seconds. He lost 4 seconds. If he wouldn't have been stuck behind George at one point in the race, the gap to Max was like 2 seconds at the end. Like it legitimately would have been a dogfight. And so this is where every stint matters. Every pass matters. How long you're stuck behind someone matters. These are all, it's coming down to like that level of detail across multiple drivers and multiple teams.
I agree. It depends on how you define a dogfight between Lando and Max, because I don't think if he had not had that 4 second delay because of Russell, he would have like ran away with the race. Max is still wringing the neck of that car. And even in those final laps, he wasn't gaining on Max a second a lap. We're talking like tenths.
Yeah.
And so that's not enough to overtake even in Spain. And so I think we're looking at Max, not just in a dominant car, we're looking at Max the racer. And it is proving that he has not lost a single ounce of his grit.
No, if anything, he's had to kind of re-engage with himself. Last year he ran away with it.
Yep.
Years previous he was fighting Lewis, but in a way there was some immaturity there. There was some, I wouldn't say desperation, but they were desperate to win. It had been 8 years for Mercedes. And so now you see him using his mind, him not putting his elbows out when he doesn't need to, him saying, okay, you can have pole. That's fine. I can even, start further back on the grid. I'll still find you. Yeah. And so you're seeing a different kind of Max. And especially now that the field's so much tighter, you're seeing a guy who it's almost like he's re-engaged with the sport.
Yes.
I think last year was just too easy.
Yeah, 100%.
It was too easy for the guy.
The car was ridiculous.
So
last year was all about the car.
And this year it really is about the driver because Red Bull doesn't have the fastest car.
1,000%. No, I'm with you on that. And so we had Max win. We had Lando come in second.
Yeah.
And we had Lewis Hamilton on the podium for the first time
in a minute.
Outqualified his teammate for the first time in 15 races.
We had George pole in Canada.
Yep.
Tied for Max with the time, but he set the time first.
Yep.
And he was on the podium. We had Lewis in fourth in Canada.
Yep.
We now have Lewis, his highest placement this year. First podium since Mexico last year.
That's crazy.
Which is insane to even think about. But
totally.
At this point, Mercedes, they're kind of slapping themselves in the head, being like, we were so stupid. We just didn't get certain pieces of our car right. And now we feel like we finally got it and realized, how did we miss this all along?
Yes.
I think this weekend and Silverstone will be the true test. If they're on podiums, if they're fighting for poles, I think we can say Mercedes finally has stopped lying to us. They were lying the last several years.
100% they were lying.
We found a North Star
through their teeth. And here's what, for the first time as a Mercedes fan, fills me with hope, is because Lewis Hamilton wasn't on the lie train. Every post-race, no, the car's trash. How are you fast? Does it seem like the car's getting speed? No, it's on a knife's edge, and we got it on the blade today.
Yeah.
And this post-conference, he was like, the team's done an amazing job.
Yep.
The parts that we've done, we've unlocked the potential of this car to pretty much its maximum at this point in time. We have more upgrades coming.
Yeah.
And I believe that those will bring us closer to the front of the field. That has actually made me, as a Mercedes fan, go, there is hope. The way that George slungshot himself around, that was some great stuff.
I mean, it was fantastic.
It was great racing up and down the floor. The very fact that it was, I mean, what were the standings for the race? We had Max, Lando,
Lewis,
George, Charles, and Carlos.
And then Carlos. And then it was Oscar and Sergio. So essentially it was bookends. It was like Red Bull in first, Red Bull in eighth, McLaren in second, McLaren in seventh, and then it was the Mercedes and the Ferrari.
And so I think what we're seeing right now is Red Bull and McLaren are pushing the front of the field.
Yes.
Like the days of old when it was Mercedes and Red Bull.
Yes.
Ferrari has
seemed to fallen off a little
bit. Into the trap that Ferrari falls into every single season.
Canada was like, what? And then even Spain, I'm like, wait, what is?
We don't even know what's happening. So they need to turn it around again, because they've started to slip backwards once again. Ferrari has.
They have.
And so we're seeing Ferrari and Mercedes gun it out for this, third and fourth position.
Yep.
And then there's, Sergio hanging out there as well.
Sergio, we might as well just talk about him. He gets this big, well, not a big, he gets a 2-year extension.
A 1+1
It's a 1+1. But all of these things are, freaking Lewis got a 1+1 from Mercedes, and he was like, yeah, bye.
Right.
Are we smelling?
I'm smelling skunk, and I thought I saw one, but
I guess we'll see it on the screen. Yeah, I'm smelling it too. This is the joy of being out in LA in the summer.
Exactly.
Just
skunks will come out to play.
Dude, I'm going to do a total tangent here, but since we brought up skunk, our dog, when we lived in Echo Park, she was doing her business one night outside our little apartment, and I see a skunk.
Oh, no.
And it's like, I don't know, maybe 20 feet away. And I see our dog see the skunk, and I was
eyes wide.
Huh! And she bolts over to play with the skunk. And the skunk tails goes up.
Boom.
Boom in the face, in her eyes. She couldn't see. She was staggering. We had to clean her off in an apartment. The entire floor of our building and our entire apartment reeked for weeks.
Yeah. I would have gotten rid of the dog. I would have taken it to the Echo Park Lake. Just have at it. There's a couple Volkswagens at the bottom. Go make a new home for
No.
yourself.
No.
And that's
It was
why I
rough.
don't have a dog.
It was rough. So
That's a tangent.
yeah, but I mean, hopefully the skunk doesn't find us.
Yeah, we love a good tangent. If it
We
comes
do.
along, let's not freak out. I don't want to get sprayed.
No, likewise.
But I think the surprise for me this weekend was who was in 10th place. Mr. 10th.
Well,
ninth.
it was Ocon and Gasly were 9th and 10th.
Renault is
Alpine
back where they always end up being, right in the middle of the field. And I just want to point out the fact that everyone has been on the shut Alpine down, close the doors on the French outfit. 100%. But at the same time, you can't sleep on Renault. They're not going anywhere.
Well,
they haven't gone anywhere. And they're going to keep trucking along. Now, the biggest bit of controversy is they've brought in one of their old guys who was responsible for Crashgate. He was the one that told Nelson Piquet Jr. to crash his car. It's the whole thing that Felipe Massa is suing F1 over and trying to get Hamilton's first world championship. It's all going to be nuts. Yeah. But he's back in the picture, and all of a sudden
he's like some executive consultant or something.
Yeah, he has a lifetime ban from F1. I have no idea how this is happening because he seems very alive to me.
I didn't know he had a lifetime
very
ban.
much involved in Formula One, which is the opposite of a lifetime ban.
One would think that would be the opposite of a lifetime ban.
Anyway, it's interesting to me that Alpine is back. Everyone's been saying they should shut it down, including you.
Well, of course I've been saying it because they've not been doing well up to this point. Pierre Gasly. So I'm just going to throw out some stats here real quick. Hang on a sec. So to this point, he was 18th in Bahrain, DNF'd in Saudi, 13th in Australia, 16th in Japan. In China, he placed 15th in the sprint, 13th in the actual race. Miami, he was 9th. Okay, so he's got that was in the sprint though. 12th in the race. And then it was 16th in Imola. Monaco, he had 10th. Canada, he had 9th. Spain, he comes back in the top 10. So the last 3 races, it's been bottom of the top 10. So, I mean, I would say after the triple header, after Austria, after Silverstone, if they're still collecting points, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to give you some more stats. Okay, so 2018, Renault, P4.
Well, I mean,
2019, Renault, P5. 2020, Renault, P5. 2021, Renault, P5. 2022, Renault, P4. 2023, Renault, P6. They're not going anywhere. No. They are forever and perpetually stuck in 5th and 6th place. And that's why I wasn't concerned about them. They had a shocking start to the year. Like,
what, this year?
Yes, they were worse than Haas.
They were stunning.
Yes,
how bad
it was so bad.
Yeah,
and they've turned it around like they always
back
do
into
to push
mediocre
to the middle.
land.
Exactly. They are pressing hard on the boundaries of mediocrity, and
that's where they're going to stay. They're going to stay. God knows when,
but they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, they've shifted back into their normal slot.
Yes. And they've locked Gasly in for another at least 2025, if not 2026. I guess
Gasly could do so much better. You know, there's certain like people.
Who would Gasly go to?
I don't know, but like you look at some of your friends and they're like with people, and you're like, you could do better. You could do better. Gasly's one of those people where you're like, bro, you could do better. Ocon, I'm like, dude, just
Alpine's got a lazy eye, a lazy eye and a limp, and he could find a better girl to dance
Gasly,
with.
I'm just
Is that what you're saying?
I'm like Gasly. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, you're a good racer. You were at Red Bull. It didn't work out for you. He's a race winner.
Yep.
He's had podiums.
True.
It's clear Renault Alpine is gonna just stay in the middle. I don't know who or where he would go. So maybe that, I don't know. Maybe that's the
Well,
best
he's
he can
stuck
do.
there now. He's stuck there for at least another year, if not two. I guess my question in regards to this, it's looking like they could chase after definitely the next position
Well,
up.
at this point, it's Haas. They're actually probably past Haas at this point.
If they could start moving in this direction and scoring points, I mean, they could overtake Aston Martin with Aston Martins. I want to take this as an opportunity to say this. Okay,
no. They're not going to take over.
Who are our surprises of the season?
That's a great question. I'm surprised at how bad Williams is.
Okay, agreed.
I've been pleasantly surprised at Haas.
And how good they're doing.
At how good they've been.
Yep, scrappy, very scrappy.
I have had zero expectation of kick.
No,
so
they're not even on the field to me. They might as well be. They might as well be in the academy or F2. Like I'm not watching them.
This is stunning. Talk about tangents. What if F1 was like the European football, where the lowest team drops into F2?
Well, the problem is that they have teams.
This is the problem. Yeah,
it's not the problem, and you also can't take that car and put it into like even if you were to take the kick,
take the whole team and if give them an F2 car.
There's not enough room.
You're demoted.
There's not enough room. There's too many people.
Okay, so Williams has surprised me for how bad they are. Haas has surprised me for pleasantly how good they are. Alpine hasn't. It surprised me in the beginning of how bad they were, but I was also like,
no, they have not surprised me. They are exactly where I thought they would be. They would flounder and then end up in the middle somewhere. RB has surprised me, though.
RB Cash App has been surprising.
RB Cash App. RB Visa.
RB,
Cash
sorry,
App.
Visa Cash App. They've been surprising. Aston's been disappointing.
Disappointing.
They've been disappointing. Like, even in Spain, watching them in the race, I was like,
it was shocking.
Guys, what are we doing? Fernando's in 12th?
Mm-hmm.
Stroll in 14th isn't surprising, but Fernando in 12th?
And even qualifying was tough.
Yeah.
I will say this. The cars are so much closer this year. Qualifying is insane. We're talking, 500ths of a second.
Well, yeah, I mean,
between 8 or 10 drivers. I mean, it is bonkers.
In Canada too, it was almost every single time a driver crossed the line in qualifying, they were the new leader.
Exactly.
And I don't know how many leaders we had in Canada for qualifying. We probably had at one point like 8 or 9 people who were in P1, but it just kept bumping down. And it wasn't necessarily because the track was evolving. It was because everyone's that close.
Right, exactly. The thing about this year where it comes out is in the race pace.
Yeah, that's the
Hamilton and Russell
separates the men and the boys kind of thing.
100%. They were cranking, but their race pace could not compare to either McLaren or Red Bull.
But in Spain,
in Max's hands,
Max, his engineer is like, okay, Max, this is our one time. You should put it on. And he's like, okay. And you see him behind Russell and just
literally, this is your one opportunity, and then overtakes him immediately.
So again,
grain of salt.
This is where you're looking at the qualifying race pace obviously being different. George, can we just park at George for a second?
Park it at George.
Park at George.
I'm gonna get us 2 more beers.
Yeah, please do. I'll monologue as you do that. So George Russell, in your own words, one of the best looking F1 drivers.
I'm convinced they created him a test tube.
No,
the perfect human being.
Didn't. How tall is George? He seems to be one of the taller ones.
Oh, he is one of the taller ones.
He's one of the taller ones.
He's almost as tall as Yuki.
No, he's not. They're on opposite ends of the continuum. But George, in Canada, he makes a mistake. He's P1. He is very confident after qualifying. Max is like, okay, cool. Gracias. He makes a mistake. Can't handle the pressure. In Spain, first corner, he's in P1. He's
rips it around the outside.
And then Max whips it around, and all of a sudden he's bye-bye. Now, he couldn't hold off Lando either. He's a good racer,
But is he good enough?
That's-
Is he the tip of the spear?
Well,
Is
no, he's
George
not.
Russell
No, he's not.
the guy who can take Mercedes and lead that team winning a championship again?
This is the question, because he's going to be, as of right now, the front man for Mercedes.
Yes.
For next year. And
especially if it ends up
concerns.
being Kimi Antonelli, it's not going to be. He's going to be getting his feet together.
Yeah.
But the guy is. I don't know. I question whether or not he can bring home a world championship. When I look at the races of his era,
absolutely not.
When I look at the drivers of his era, we're talking about Max, we're talking about Charles, we're talking about Lando, and I'm like, dude, they all got that something that George doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
They've got that grit.
Yeah.
They've got that bit between their teeth. Yeah. There is a driving force behind these drivers that says, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Right, wrong, or indifferent, they're the drivers that see Guan Yu Zhou flip his car at Silverstone and keep driving because they say, this is what I am doing, and this is everything to me. He'll be fine. Someone else will handle it because I'm going to handle this championship. George is the guy that stops. Is George too nice? Is there such a thing as too nice? Maybe in Formula One there is.
George is a nice guy.
There's my monologue.
No, that's well said. I actually had totally forgotten about that last season. And George did stop, and he did get disqualified from the rest of the race.
He got out of his car. He was done.
And the rest of the guys are like, I read the rule book, bro. I'm going to stay in my car.
Mm-hmm. And I would like to say that I would probably do what George did.
Yeah.
It's not my life ambition.
Most of us would
It's not
like
my
to
life ambition
yeah.
to give everything I have to the Formula One championship.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that...
Although I obviously could have. I mean, look at me.
I feel like we're too tall.
I mean, George can do it. George can't do it.
But yeah, I feel like we're too tall for a car. That's the only thing that's keeping us out of Formula One, by the way.
Yeah.
With George, there's some commentators who were mentioning that unlike a Max, unlike a Lando, George went to Williams first.
Correct.
And the first part of his career, he's in a Williams when Williams was nowhere.
Garbage. And I mean, those are the ones where he was driving around going, guys, can I just bring it? Do we have to finish the race?
He literally was saying, can we just stop? Please?
It was the season that they were so bad that their main sponsor, Rocket, sued them for misleading them in regards to being an actual Formula One team. Like, that's what he walked into. It was bad.
Well, and this is where some of the folks have been saying, these other guys got with a team that's at the front or that's fighting in the top 2 or 3. And the experience you gain at the front is radically different than the experience you get at the back. Exactly. And so George is really having to play catch up when you think about it. Like Chuck was with Ferrari. Lando's with McLaren.
Yeah. And even when Chuck was with Alfa Romeo, he had a world time. He had what's his name? Raikkonen with him. So Kimi, he had an actual champion.
Yep.
When he was at Ferrari cutting his teeth, he had Vettel right by his side.
Yep.
And so
who did George have? I don't even remember.
No, oh gosh, it was the old guy, Quebec.
Somebody.
Yeah, someone. We'll look it up.
Not the same teammate who's pushing you in the same way. So I think that's part of the thing that George, we talk about Lando, this being his second pull and him starting to have to learn how to race at the front. I think George is the same way. He didn't start off in a good team, and he's having to learn on the go and now learn under pressure with Mercedes saying, hey, you're our guy for next season. So, I mean, I like George. I think he's a good guy. There are little mistakes he makes, but little mistakes at this point is the thing that's going to drop you off the podium. It's the thing that's going to drop you
100%
out of pole position twice, 2 races in a row.
And here's the thing, Spain, you got to give to him because his car wasn't going to give him that position. No. I get it. But the way that it seems to happen over and over again makes me question whether or not he has the grit at the end of the day. It was Robert Quebec. Kubica. I always forget how to say his name. He was the old dude with the bald head who got into a car accident.
Yeah. And then he came back, right?
Yeah, he came back. He was a reserve driver for a few people. Okay, moving on from. Let's talk drivers real quick. Drivers market.
Yeah.
Okay, so this week it came out that Pierre is at Alpine. The biggest shock that rippled through the Formula One paddock this week. No one could understand how this has happened. Will Buxton himself spoke slower than he does on Drive to Survive because it was confirmed that Lance Stroll will be continuing at Aston Martin. The Nepo Baby saga continues. Free content for the next year at least. Nepo Baby locks in another year under Daddy. Daddy Warbucks signs him for another year to cut his teeth in the world of, where he's been for a decade and accomplished very little. Meanwhile, we should just
put all
Carlos Sainz, who is going to go to Williams. But yes, let's keep Lance Stroll at Aston Martin. Because it's the engine, which is Lance's problem. So, of course, they're going to hit the Honda engine next year, and he's going to decimate. He's going to be a world champion.
Of course. That'll change things.
That's what it is.
That'll change things. I mean, he was giving us, so much to talk about for the next year. But it's at this point, we can just string together all of our comments on Lance and the anger we feel. Justified, righteous anger when people who are busting their butt can't land a seat. And someone who, again, he's an F1 driver.
Yes.
He's one of the 20. He scores points. But that's it. So Aston Martin and, Father Stroll, if you just are content with him scoring points. Father Stroll. I like that. Father. If you're content with that, fine. Stop saying you want to win a championship.
Exactly. Well,
you have no more credibility. Stop it.
You're not telling the world that. And talent, who was it that said talent attracts talent in Formula One? Someone had said that.
Oh, someone said that.
We had mentioned that. You had said.
Yeah, it was one of the podcasts I listened to. It was probably Tom Clarkson.
Tom Clarkson,
the
legend.
Tom.
It was in reference to Adrian Newey and where he goes, and
it was in reference to Williams and to Sainz potentially going to Williams.
Exactly. And so if Williams has Sainz and they've got these investors, and James in and of himself is actually a bit of a name. Yeah. James Vowles is nothing to snuff at.
Yeah.
And so maybe that attracts him. Or you look at Lewis and Ferrari, and those are two big talents, and Freddie V. Talent attracts talent. When you look at Aston Martin, and you're trying to build the most gangster Formula One team from all the way from your pit crew to your engineers to your designers, and you keep showing them that you're okay with a mediocre driver over and over and over again, I don't think you're going to recruit.
Yes.
And so
and they're trying to recruit Adrian.
And I think it came out something about $23 million for him to.
Fireworks or gunshots?
We don't know if it's fireworks or gunshots. I think it's a car. $23 million to Adrian Newey, which is a large sum of money, but I don't think he's interested in money. I think he's interested in talent. Where am I going to go spend the last days of my Formula One career?
He should just go to Ferrari.
And is it going to be with Lance Stroll?
Go to Ferrari. Live in Italy.
Please
retire.
Please go to
live
Ferrari.
There for both of us because we can't go there yet. Although I am going there next year.
You are.
My sister's getting married.
I'm going there next year.
On a little island off of Sicily.
That's where I'm going next year.
What?
I'm going.
Are you serious?
We can talk about this. We can talk about this offline. We can double click on this.
Talk about it offline.
But
my God.
I'm going to Italy. What month?
June.
No, I'm going in July. I'm going in July or August.
Oh, fantastic.
I love it.
Our sidebar is first the skunks and the fireworks.
Skunks, fireworks in Italy.
Outside.
This is what happens when we sit
outside. No, you're right. Talent attracts talent.
Yeah.
And again, Alpine, I'm not sure if they're saying they're going to win a world championship.
Mm-hmm.
If they are, no one believes them. But I think they're my sense of it is that they're kind of realistic with where they're at.
Right.
I would argue that Alpine has better drivers than Lance Stroll. I would argue that Gasly's a better driver.
100%.
Right? So, like, the drivers for
I'd
that
even
team
argue that
are
Ocon
better.
is a better driver.
I would argue that too. So, if you had even like a Gasly on Aston, I'd be like, okay, give him a good car.
Mm-hmm.
He's won races before. He's had podiums before.
Exactly.
Anything's possible. You give someone a good car. Car's not the problem. The one who holds the steering wheel
Correct.
is. And so good for him that he's locked in another year, I guess. Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Mazel tov. I don't know.
There's nothing to say about that. For me, I feel bad because Alonso isn't going to be able to take this team to a championship with Lance.
No.
He could if they gave him the car. Alonso could win another championship.
Yeah.
100%. I believe it. But yeah, so we still have Carlos without a seat for next season. And we've gone from in the beginning of the year for him having a choice of the entire field, not worried about it, to now being left with
he's at the back of the pack.
Kick/Audi, Williams, Mercedes, which seems like a really long shot. Like it's not going to happen. The Red Bull seat that everyone was talking about is gone.
Yeah, it's done. Unless Sergio keeps tanking. Now, I guess, again, Spain, he had a 3-grid place penalty.
Sergio had a 3-grid place penalty, but he still qualified 8th. He's locked in for next year.
It has to be mental at this point.
He's locked in for next year. He can't have that seat.
He's locked in. If he keeps, if they lose,
Sainz is not going to go to Visa Cash App Racing Bulls.
No, but I'm saying if Red Bull loses the Constructors' Championship because of Sergio, do you think they keep him? It's quite possible that they lose the Constructors because of Sergio.
We're not. The Sainz will be in a seat before that happens. You think Williams and Audi will hold out for Sainz until the end of this season?
No, I mean, he has to commit.
Exactly.
But these guys commit and uncommit. Freaking Piastri.
No, that's different. There was a clause in his contract. You think that the field hasn't learned from that? I mean, I agree with you. Contract schmontract.
Contracts.
They cut these things up
like they just it's
like a sushi roll,
right? I mean, okay. So here's the thing. I'm just gonna park on Sergio for a second. He's had a bad run of luck the last couple races. If he continues to be beaten by McLaren, by Ferrari, by Mercedes,
correct,
which is what's happening right now. Red Bull is ruthless. That's the biblical truth that we know about Red Bull. They are ruthless. They are not going to put up if that's what he continues to do. Now, it's unfortunate that the 2 races after he locks his 1+1 deal, he's out there not doing well. But the dude's got to turn it around. And I think if he doesn't, then I think they look at who they've got on Visa Cash App RB. Right. They look at Lawson, and that's their job is to bring up new talent. And I think if Sergio can't cut it, I think one of those guys either gets promoted.
Totally.
And that's it. He retires early.
Wow. I mean, he did say that this would be his last team.
He did.
And so, I mean, they could fire him. Sure. I'm sure there's performance clauses.
My thing is if he's not finishing on the podium,
what's the point of him being on the team?
What's the point of him being on the team? Because then they're at risk of losing Constructors' Championship.
Well, and I think the reason why he got signed for a 1+1 is because Red Bull is still floundering in the shadows of their tumultuous start to the year from a PR perspective.
I just want that
and
to be
so
over, sweet.
I think Horner's looking down the barrel of a gun because November is coming up when this case goes back to get retried again because the persons involved are not happy with it. That he's like, I just need to get this out of the way, and and I want to get I want to get this done. But we don't know whether or not it was the right decision. Sergio since then has DNF'd and placed 8th.
Yeah.
So he's not necessarily building the case that they made the right decision at this point. We're going to the Red Bull Ring, which is you win. That's the expectation from the team. Max win or Checo win. This is our home course, Silverstone. We need to win.
Wait, hang on a second, dude. Imola, Sergio was 8th. Monaco, he DNF'd. Canada, he DNF'd. Spain was 8th.
Yes.
This is not good.
No, it's not good.
This is not good. Now, again, the DNF in Monaco wasn't his fault. That was the Vikings' fault all the way.
Magnussen.
Mag Daddy. So that wasn't Sergio's fault. But at the same time, there was some room on the left-hand side. He could have bumped left, but
Formula One, no one cares about luck. You're only as good as your last race, and no one cares whether or not someone crashed into you or you crashed into somebody.
This is not.
If you're not performing and if you're not there when it's not an unlucky weekend, which he's not, he's finishing 8th.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, this is.
I don't know. I think it was a reactionary decision from Red Bull. I think it was to try to cover up and keep people's eyes off of the scandal that's happening underneath the surface. I don't think we've seen the last of it. I am looking at a driver's championship, and you've got Max and Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc for the top 3. And let's not forget that the start of this season started like all of last season. Max and Red Bull were dominating.
Yeah.
There's no reason why Sergio should be in 5th place right now.
No.
He should be up there with Max, fighting and duking it out. Carlos Sainz, for goodness sake, is ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, even Oscar isn't that far away. Oscar's roughly 20-some points behind him. And at this point, Sergio is at risk of even falling further back down the field.
He has one more poor finish.
Oh, yeah.
If Ferrari gets their feet together, he's in trouble again.
Yep. I want to love Sergio at Red Bull. I love Sergio. I think he's a phenomenal driver. I want to love him at Red Bull. And it just, in these moments where it's like, yes, it's going to work. It's like,
but it just doesn't.
I think Max likes Sergio because Max isn't challenged by Sergio.
And I don't think it's easy to be, and Alex Albon said this, it's not easy to be Max's teammate.
God, no.
And so they don't develop the car for a person, but they definitely will aim development around whoever is winning.
It's Max.
And that's Max. And so if he wants a pointier car, but Checo doesn't, well, Checo, you're not performing, so we're going to go ahead and make this car pointier.
Which is just kind of a vicious cycle and a self-fulfilling prophecy, because winning attracts winning to the point where it kind of becomes hard to lose. Exactly. Losing attracts losing to the point where it becomes hard to win. So, when you are on top, it really is hard to stop being on top. And when you're struggling and you can't get your feet under you, and you're stringing together 4 bad races, legitimately 4 bad races going into this weekend and into Silverstone, you got to perform if you're Checo. You got to step up. You got to actually get on the podium. That's the expectation, is you got to be on the podium.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be.
No.
Because Lando's faster than him.
Yes.
The Ferraris are faster than him. And at this point, the Mercedes are looking faster than him.
Yes. Max won not because the Red Bull was faster than the McLaren. He won because he was a better racer on Sunday. Can you say the same of Sergio?
I was just going to say that's not something that we would say of Sergio.
No.
At any point.
And so Red Bull's looking at him like the unwanted redheaded stepchild at the moment. Or Red Bullet head stepchild. And he needs to step it up or step it out. He won't step it out, but I'm bet your bottom dollar that Red Bull will step him out.
Dude, Lawson is just chomping.
Lawson's there, man.
Lawson's
you put Lawson in there with Max? That would be insane.
Dude, Red Bull's done this before. They've given people chances.
He ripped.
While we're talking Red Bull family,
yes,
Danny Rick.
Man,
How are we feeling about Danny Rick?
give me 2 more races.
Okay, so he was 8th in Canada.
Yep.
In Spain.
But you can't just say his 8th. He was 8th and Yuki was.
Hang on a second.
Your spreadsheet's failing you.
Make sure I'm fact checking real quick.
Okay.
Yuki was in Canada. He was 14th.
Okay, so he was 14th.
However, Yuki had scored in the previous 3 races plus the sprint.
Yeah.
And Ricciardo had scored in one of those.
The problem for Danny Rick right now is that he's 10 points behind Yuki. And so Yuki's signed. They're loving Yuki.
Yeah, dude, he's delivering.
He's delivered. And we love that because I said that he wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Because I said Lawson would get it, the seat, because Helmut said he would. And I said Danny would keep it because he brings in all the money.
He did.
But at this point, I don't know if Laurent Mekies is kind of like, I need someone who can actually take this to the future. The problem is that they bought a massive upgrade package. And they went all in Vegas style.
Yeah.
They put it all on black and they lost because it did not work. The car, but in a confusing way. Because the drivers, if you listen to their radio, they would come around and they'd go, man, that was a really good lap. And they'd come back over, the engineers would come back over and go, we didn't make it into Q2. We didn't make it into Q3.
That was a banging lap. Yeah, you're last place, bro.
Which just says the car was balanced, but it wasn't fast enough.
Ricciardo was 15th and Yuki was 19th.
Yeah.
In Spain.
It was not a good weekend for them. And they went all in and they said they're going to look at the data and they're going to stick with the upgrades because they think it's the way to go and they're going to make the adjustments and come here. But I'm like, man, that's a rough pill to swallow.
Yeah, it's a rough go of it. And it's difficult too because, again, as a team, they've been doing really, really well. And Yuki specifically, Yuki scored
Yuki's the man.
Yeah, Yuki scored in like 6 of the races this year.
Mm-hmm.
Danny, on the other hand, has scored in 2.
2 and a sprint.
Well, so it's 1 in a sprint.
1 in a sprint.
Yeah. So, but from where they were last year, it's already a massive step up. They're already ahead in the points.
Yes.
From where they were last year. Last year they had 25 points. This year, as of right now, they're looking at 28. So
they're the top of the backpack.
Ahead. Yeah,
they're the top of the backpack. They're nowhere near Aston Martin. They're nowhere near Alpine. And so
Alpine is not gonna. Well,
I think they could do it. We're not even halfway through the season. And if they keep developing this car, I mean,
I don't
think
want
about them.
Alpine.
Of course, you don't want them to. But I'm telling you,
I want them to
don't
lose.
bet against Alpine. I just gave you all of the data going back 6 years. 4th, 5th, 4th, 5th, 6th, 4th, 5th, 6th. It is what it is. If you were to ask me, give me 3 positions that Alpine could be in this year, I would tell you it's going to be 4th, 5th, or 6th.
Well, this year,
that's where they're going to be.
This year, not likely to be 4th, 5th, or 6th.
It almost likely to be 6th.
They're going to be, not 4th, 5th, or 6th.
But they could, if Aston Martin doesn't get their feet together, they could overtake Aston Martin. Aston Martin had some good points out the gate, but they're not performing. They're falling back. F1 is like an escalator. If you stop moving, you're going backwards.
Yeah, you're just going down. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Aston Martin, we mentioned they were a surprise this year. It's difficult because things change so quickly. Last year, Alonso's podiums, he's getting 2nd, he's getting 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
There's such just energy. And then this year, that's just not the case. And I don't know, and I don't know if they know if it was them falling backwards or if it was everyone else just saying, okay, thank you very much. We're going to pass you now. But it's a bummer. It's a genuine bummer. I love Alonso. Would love to see him fighting, and seeing him finish 12th just kind of sucks. especially as home race.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Let's talk Williams real quick. Let's take a vote. How many more weeks do we think Logan's going to have until they announce that they're replacing him?
I would say he's got till summer break.
Summer break. You think they'll come? Do you think he'll make it till summer break before they announce who's taking that seat? That's like a month and a half.
Well, at this point, Williams is...
They're banking on Sainz.
Yeah. It really, I guess, would depend on when Sainz decides he wants to go from Ferrari to Williams officially.
Right.
Right now, it's just speculation.
Yeah.
He hasn't made that confirmed. So I think it's... If Sainz is holding on for Mercedes, which it doesn't look like that's a possibility, but if he is, he's going to wait.
Would be silly to not
wait.
Because who's left is Alpine, Mercedes, Williams, Kick / Audi, and Haas, technically. And
it's all the backpack except Mercedes.
Exactly. So any one of those other teams would die to have him.
Would you do a year at Mercedes if that was the only thing on the table?
At this point, I would do a year at Mercedes over
at
Williams.
I would absolutely do a year at Mercedes because then you can go prove yourself, trust that Mercedes will have a better result than Williams, and then you wait and see if the driver market opens back up next year.
Here's the thing about Mercedes. If they get this right, they're back. They're back.
You're on a team that's winning. If
they get this car right and they go into next year and they are going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you spend a year?
Why I would spend a year?
If anything, it's going to make your career just look better.
Yeah. Because
even if they give it to Antonelli after the fact,
once you're at the bottom, you're
at the bottom.
You're at the bottom. You're done. You're not
yes.
coming back up for air.
Yes.
Is there a driver who went down south and then came back up to a top team? I'm not saying started there. I'm saying went from a top team down and then somehow resurrected.
No.
I can't think of one.
I can think of
it's kind of career ending.
Kimi Räikkönen went from Ferrari to Alpha and then out.
Yeah.
That's a world champion.
It's the exit door.
Yeah.
It's the exit strategy. So
Albon has gone from he went from Red Bull, and then he'll go to Toro Rosso, Red Bull, down to Williams. He might be the first one that could go back up.
He could because he's a great racer.
But I still don't. I don't. To me, he falls in the same bank as George Russell.
I don't see it happening. There's better racers. There's better talent coming.
Correct.
In. There's the Oscar Piastris of the world, where it's like,
yes,
sorry, bro. So I mean, this is the problem: is Sainz risks one step closer to the exit door if he goes to a bottom team.
And that's what I'm saying. It's a gamble on Audi. It's a gamble on Williams that they'll actually be able to pull it off. Mercedes is not that much of a gamble.
No, and it's Mercedes.
Yes,
even
and they might do better than Ferrari next year. Because Ferrari is Ferrari. They're the hot-headed Italians. They just get a little spicy. They win a race, and then they flounder for a few. And we're seeing it now. If I was Hamilton, I'd be looking at the track going, what happened? We started so good. I'm coming to you next year. Can you figure all this out before I get there?
Can you have some stability, some
Please.
Consistency? I mean, yeah. So
I'm showing a lot of leg in this.
You are
this podcast.
You really
if you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing out. I got legs that a lady would die for.
It's got some
I don't know if that's a good thing.
So this is the challenge with Sainz. He doesn't deserve to be one step closer to the exit of F1 if he goes Williams. That's just where he's at.
Yeah.
Sarge, I think I give Sarge until the summer break or until a decision's made.
I still think Toto Wolff is petty enough to take Carlos for a season, just knowing that their car could be better, and say, you took my 7-time world champion, I took the guy that you dropped for him,
and I'll beat you.
Does that not sound like Toto Wolff? Does that not sound like Toto Wolff? I'll take your driver.
I mean,
I'll make a better car.
I would love if that was actually what Toto did.
Bring him to my apartment in Monaco. Go vacation in the Med. Like,
I'd love that.
I
would love that.
But I don't know if Carlos wants a year. That's what it comes back to with Red Bull couldn't give him what he wanted. It wasn't money.
I get it. Everyone
it was time.
Wants a multi-year deal.
But he doesn't have many options now.
You don't have many options now. You take... again, neither of us are in F1. It's easy to say from our
surprise,
backyard pod recording here. But I would say that if you're seeing the data and the general trend of if you go to a losing team, you're not coming back up for air.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to stay there until you exit F1. You just stay at the sharp end, at the pointy end, as long as you can.
Yep.
They give you a year, you take a year. I mean, at this point, if money doesn't matter, if winning is what matters, then you stay with the teams that can win.
100%.
Makes sense.
So we're going to
the Red Bull
Ring.
Predictions.
Max. Max wins. Lewis P2.
Lewis P2.
Lando P3.
I don't think Mercedes has the race pace to be a P2. Lando's pissed.
You asked me.
Of course. Okay, so
I gave you my answer.
Fair enough. Max P1, Lewis P2, Lando P3. I think Lando is frustrated with himself. He is frustrated with the fact that he has a car he is fast,
mm-hmm.
and he feels like, okay, he should have won Canada.
Yep.
He also should have won Spain.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's going into Austria saying,
mm-hmm.
I can do this. I
mm-hmm.
should have had 2 more wins under my belt.
Right.
Again, it's the Red Bull Ring. Red Bull's going to throw everything into it.
Right.
To get their car on top. I think it will be a fight. I think Lando is going to be challenging for first.
Oh, it's going to be a fight.
I don't know if that he'll win it, but I think he will really be challenging.
Even last year with the monstrous advantage that Red Bull had, they only won that race by 5 seconds. Only 5 seconds.
I forget
in
who was
2023.
Yeah, that's stunning.
Second was Charles Leclerc. Chuck. Our boy Chuck was in second.
Yeah.
So, and then third was Checo, followed by Lando. And so we're looking at a fight. If Red Bull in its peak was only 5 seconds ahead of a Ferrari, and we're looking at Lando coming out of Spain as the quote unquote fastest car on the track.
I'd love for Lando to win.
Lando to just take it to the Spielberg and just
be incredible.
Rip it.
Be incredible.
Into another galaxy and far beyond.
Yeah.
It would be insane. But I'm still saying it'll be Max.
It's probably the end of it.
Lando.
I mean, Red Bull, though, again, they have more muscle memory winning. They have more muscle memory making really good decisions under a lot of stress. Their freaking
it's a good point.
Pit stop team did a 1.9 second pit stop.
Insane.
I mean, this is incredible stuff. Like
that's like 4 blinks of your eye.
These guys are they are on it. And so even though they don't have the fastest car at every track, they don't make mistakes. And Lando's made mistakes. McLaren as a team has made some mistakes. George has made some mistakes. Ferrari is being Ferrari.
Ferrari's being Ferrari. Ferrari.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
And then we head into one of my favorite races every single year.
And Lando led at the beginning. He overtook Max.
Lando came in second last year, lost by 3.7 seconds.
I mean,
Lewis came in third. You can never underestimate Lewis at Silverstone.
You can't.
You cannot.
What if Lewis won? What if it was one Silverstone?
So my prediction for the Silverstone is that Lewis Hamilton will win the Silverstone race. His maiden victory after living in the doldrums, surviving in the desert, will be P1 at Silverstone. He will not qualify P1, but he will finish P1. That's my prediction. Followed by Lando, followed by Max.
I feel like his P1, Max would have to have some kind of mechanical failure for Hammy to
not right now. Can you imagine if we have Max and Hamilton fighting at the sharp end of the stick again? Like, it's gonna be an absolute dream. It's the first time one of them goes to take over. Okay, flashback to the Spanish Grand Prix when Max comes on the radio and goes, "He pushed me to the grass." Chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. Do you think it would have been a chuckle, chuckle, chuckle if it was Lewis?
No,
absolutely not.
No.
It is going to be a fiery rest of the season. If Mercedes gets back up in there in the mix, which is something that I have just been praying for, is that my team would somehow pull it together.
You are going to eventually be a Ferrari fan. You love Hamilton too much.
If I go anywhere,
you love Hamilton too much.
I love Hamilton, but it won't be Ferrari. If I go anywhere,
you're going to Italy next year. You've already been.
I've been to the Ferrari factory,
dude. You are going to be a Ferrari. I just sense it. I'm going to predict it next season.
They should give us a tour when we're there for our podcast. You should do an episode from.
I'm here for
from the courtyard.
I'm here for.
I mean, we have the setup.
We do.
It's going to be an amazing rest of the season.
Do love me a good triple header.
Oh, man.
None of these breaks. Just give us racing.
If I could watch 17 hours of Formula One every week, why wouldn't I?
My wife was like, "Yeah, this is kind of a whole weekend commitment, isn't it?"
Yeah.
Like, of course it is.
Kirsten, my wife is like, "It's a triple header," and I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Okay." All right. Well, we'll see you after the not the Hungaroring.
It's Austria.
It's
the Red Bull Ring.
The Red Bull Ring. They'll be in Spielberg. They're already there. And we will be covering it.
We will be.
As always, keep rolling, friends.
See you, folks.